What if I told you a single plate saved a $50 million deal? In a skyscraper boardroom filled with billionaires and power-hungry executives, it wasn't the lawyers, it wasn't the polished negotiators. No, it was a janitor, a single father, who turned everything around, and the reward he earned that night was worth more than all the money in the world. The city skyline glowed under a velvet night, skyscrapers piercing the heavens with their diamond-like lights. High above, in the most luxurious office tower, a meeting stretched into its 11th hour. Tension thickened the air like smoke. Executives argued, their words sharp as knives. Pens scribbled furiously across contracts, but nothing seemed to hold. Inside that boardroom sat Victor Hayes, a billionaire CEO whose empire teetered on the edge. One deal, worth $50 million, was the lifeline. But tonight, that deal seemed doomed. And somewhere down the hall, pushing his mop across marble floors, was Daniel Clark, a janitor, a widower, a father. His uniform was faded, his shoulders stooped with exhaustion, yet his eyes held a quiet strength. He wasn't thinking about billion-dollar deals. He was thinking of his daughter, Emily, asleep in their tiny apartment across town. She had exams coming soon, and he worried about paying her tuition. Daniel worked silently, invisible to the men in suits who brushed past him. But fate, that night, was about to bring him into their world. The boardroom's oak doors were closed, but voices inside carried into the hallway. "50 million? Impossible terms," barked one executive, slamming his fist. "If we lose this, the company bleeds," another shouted. Victor Hayes rubbed his temples, his composure unraveling. "Gentlemen, we cannot afford failure." At the far end of the polished table sat the foreign investor, a man of stone, unmoved by their words. His silence was a weapon, and everyone in the room knew it. Daniel entered quietly to empty the trash bins. He kept his head down, but as he moved around the room, he noticed the tension. His eyes fell on the investor. The man looked weary, distant, untouched by the chaos around him. In front of him sat a plate, empty, but for a few crumbs, and Daniel's heart skipped. Those crumbs looked familiar. Cookies. Not just any cookies. The kind his late wife used to bake. The kind he had baked that very morning for Emily, packing a few extras into a napkin. They were simple, homemade, imperfect, but they carried love. The shouting grew louder. The deal was unraveling. Papers were being shoved back into briefcases. Millions about to vanish. Daniel's hand brushed the napkin in his pocket. He hesitated. What business did a janitor have interfering in a billionaire's negotiation? Yet, something urged him. Quietly, he unfolded the napkin. A few cookies, slightly crumbled, but warm with memory. He placed them gently on the empty plate in front of the investor. The room froze. Executives stared in disbelief. The CEO's eyes widened. The investor looked down. Slowly, he reached for one. He broke a piece, tasted it. His stern face softened. For the first time that night, he smiled. "These," he murmured, voice thick with emotion, "taste like my mother's." The atmosphere shifted. Laughter broke the silence. The tension dissolved, and suddenly, words flowed easier. The investor leaned forward, more open, more human. And just like that, the deal was back on the table. Victor Hayes stared at Daniel with awe. The executives, once scornful, now looked at him as if seeing him for the first time. But Daniel didn't gloat. He stepped back, humble, almost embarrassed by the attention. The meeting continued, but with a newfound warmth. Jokes were shared, stories exchanged. Within the hour, pens scratched across contracts. The deal, worth $50 million, was signed. The boardroom erupted in relief. Hands shook. Glasses clinked. But amid the celebration, all eyes turned once more to the janitor, who had, with one plate, done what no strategy had achieved. When the room cleared, Victor Hayes approached Daniel. The billionaire's sharp, commanding presence had melted into something softer. "Daniel," he said, reading the janitor's name from his badge, "you may think you're just a janitor, but tonight you saved this company." Daniel shifted uneasily. "I just thought he might need a reminder of home. That's all." Victor placed a hand on his shoulder. "Sometimes, Daniel, it isn't money or power that wins hearts. It's humanity." Then, the CEO did something no one expected. He offered Daniel not just a bonus, not just recognition, but a scholarship for Emily, full tuition to the finest school in the city, a future secured. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. For years, he had scrubbed floors and emptied trash to give his daughter a chance. And in one night, kindness had returned more than he had ever dared dream. He was just a janitor, a man invisible in the eyes of billionaires. But that night, Daniel Clark reminded them all of something money could never buy: humanity, kindness, and the power of a father's love. He saved a $50 million deal, but the reward he received was worth far more. Because sometimes, the greatest victories are not measured in numbers, but in lives changed forever.